Today we're going to be doing a little bit of work on my 03 911 Targa. And when I say work, I specifically mean upgrades. So this is what I have here. This is the controversial GT3 Plenum and throttle body kit for the non-Metzger engines on your 996 and 997 Porsches. Now if you're a Porsche guy, you'll know that most people actually go with the IPD brand Plenum kit. This is not, this is the Spider Performance. The difference, really not a whole lot at all. I mean, the only difference between the two is that the IPD has this triangular divider right in the center of the plenum, which apparently is supposed to help air divide into the engine, which, yeah, I don't really know about. However, the price difference for this kit is huge. This kit, it's a British company that makes it, ran me about $650 USD. The IPD kit would have run me over $1,100. So, yeah, take that as you will. This entire kit is plug-in and play. You need a basic set of tools, a little bit of patience, and it shouldn't take more than an hour. However, one thing to mention with these kits is, even though they are controversial, some say they don't do anything, some say they do. Obviously the science is there, more airflow, more power. You will get the most out of it by getting the car tuned. The stock ECU will adapt to the more airflow and the larger throttle blade and such, and tune itself accordingly, but to really get all the optimal power out of this kit, I'm going to get my car tuned. And the first thing I'm going to start with is removing all of these stock intake components, and then we'll have a clear look at what we're dealing with. Of course, that's pretty simple. There actually is only one bolt holding down the airbox, and that is right here in the center of the, I guess, the rear bumper. Now we have full access to the throttle body. So of course the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect all of the vacuum line connections and electrical connections from the throttle body and then pull that off. So of course we have the connection for the throttle body motor itself, then we have a vacuum connection back here, and then a small, I'm not exactly sure, this is some kind of check valve that goes into the factory plenum boot there. And then of course, once all that is free, I'm going to remove the throttle body. And there's two boots. There's one boot on each side of the factory plenum. Those have to be moved aside, and then the whole thing will just come right out towards you. But of course, this is old German plastic, so we want to be very, very careful when we remove all these connections not to crack or damage anything, especially one of these very long vacuum lines that goes way back into the engine, because I'm sure that would be an absolute pain in the ass to replace. Right out. There she be. Definitely a bit dirty. Now let's compare the two side by side. So as you can see, right off the bat, very noticeable difference. This is the stock, I believe it's 74 millimeters, and obviously the 82 millimeter GT3 throttle body. But let's verify just to make sure there's that much of a difference. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but we got just a hair over 75 millimeters on the stock throttle body. And it looks like on the GT3 we got just a hair over 83 millimeters inside diameter. Okay, so a pretty decent difference. So let's give it another go. Oh, here it comes. Okay, and with a little bit of reluctance, she is free. Moving this back would be a little bit easier. There we go. Okay, that's pretty much what we got to do. On each boot, for each side of the plenum, there are two hose clamps securing the plenum to the intake manifold, I guess. So I guess the game here looks like this one we're gonna have to move to the left further onto the intake manifold. Then this one here, I think we're gonna have to also move to the left. Alright, with a lot of wiggling and a little bit of prying, the old Plenum came out relatively easy. This left side boot I had to scoot all the way onto the intake manifold, and the one on the right side I had to move all the way onto the actual Plenum itself. And here it is. This thing is real friggin' greasy, that is for sure. And now the tricky part. Getting the new Plenum into the engine. I'm sure it's going to take a lot of wiggling and finagling. But luckily I got the whole area somewhat doused with this Teflon dry lube. And well, let's see what we can do. Kind of an angle, because the boot on the left side seems to be more flexible. It seems like it has more room to be manipulated versus the one on the right side. So here we go. Okay, so after a good 15 minutes of finagling and wiggling and squeezing and squishing, I've got the new Plenum in place. It was definitely a bit tricky. It was tight to get in to begin with because obviously there's not designed to be any clearance between the manifold and the Plenum itself. So, as you saw, I had to basically fold this right coupler over the top of the lip on the Plenum. And now once I got it in place, I had to go in from the inside here very carefully with this tire wedge, and I had to roll, see if I can get a light here. I had to roll the coupler off of the edge from the inside. So you're probably not going to be able to see it too well, but I was able to actually fit my fist in here very surprisingly, and kind of pull and knead and kind of twist everything in place. So now it moves up and down freely. All of these lips are aligned. Each coupler is stepped, and there's a small, very shallow rubber groove that fits into grooves on the manifold and the Plenum, and now they're both sitting in there, which is why this can rotate very easily. So now I'm going to fit all the parts back in place. So now we come to the factory air intake. Obviously we're not going to be using the stock boot because it is simply too small. And of course, as far as the Heimholtz resonator goes down here, we've got a nice little nifty black plug where that's going to go into. So let's get this boot swapped out and the resonator bypassed. Go. So let's pop this plug on like that. There we go. Well, everything is in place, but I will tell you one thing. This aftermarket intake boot wanted to do anything but fit on the engine. I mean, this is just not really cut the right way. The angle is just not sharp enough. It wants to go out here, not in here. So I had to spend a lot of time wrestling this thing into place, but it's in place, it's tight, and now what I'm gonna do is clear the OBD system on the computer and then fire up for the first time. All right, now let's fire her up. However, just keep in mind it's probably gonna stall out a few times, probably gonna run rough because the ECU has to adjust to all the extra air in the bigger throttle blade. But let's give her a go. Or not. I mean, usually these things will stall out and sputter when you try to start it for the first time, but that pretty much fired right up. Okay, so now that she's a bit warmed up, I'm gonna go ahead and take some carb cleaner. I'm gonna spray around all of the connections at each boot and see if we got any vacuum leaks. The belt is a little bit squeaky for some reason. I think I might have got some lube on it or something by mistake, but anyway, let's see if we have any changes in idle. I mean, that seems pretty damn steady to me. I sprayed around each connection. I think we're good. Okay, so it is the next day. My camera is out of space, so I'm using my phone for this last little segment. But now I'm going to be preparing to get the car tuned. Now, where I'm going, it's not exactly a dyno tune. I'm actually going to be getting a flash on the ECU, and to save time, I'm going to be removing the ECU myself in their parking lot. So I'll show you real quick how to do that. So it's actually the easiest part of the whole operation, removing the ECU. It's very simple, all 996 coupes. So non-cabriolet models, turbo and not. Fold down the rear seats here, and there's this little flap. This cover that just kind of sits in place. Grab it right in the middle and it will fold up like so. Pull it out of the way, put it on the seat perhaps. Then you have these two plates here. These cover various relays, wiring harnesses, and in my case, and of course the ECU. Now if I remove, it's just three little nuts that keeps this left side on. And now we can just kind of maneuver this. Might need two hands for this. Kind of up and over. And this is the ECU. It's right here. Very plain and simple. It's fastened to the plate. Sometimes they're Torx. In my case, it's just 10mm bolts that, as you can see, are popping through here. We disconnect. I'm not going to do it now because I still have to drive the car over there and the battery's not unplugged, but just disconnect all of these connectors here. Apparently they're all different, so you can't mix them up. Unbolt the thing from the plate and boom, the ECU comes out. And then I take it into the place to get it flashed, which, according to the guy, I already talked with him. With my throttle body and X-pipe, this tune should yield me 24 wheel horsepower. Hopefully that's right, because we're not going to be putting it on the dyno to prove it, but apparently these guys are pretty reputable, so we'll see. So we are on our way to get the ECU flashed. About a 50-mile drive to this tuning shop, and everything's running good so far. What I've noticed off the bat is definitely a lack of torque below 3,500 RPM. However, above 5,500 RPM, there seems to be more of a sudden increase in power. That's to be expected from what I've researched, that without a tune you lose bottom end and don't really feel anything to high in the revs. But we'll see how this compares to after the flash. And this here's the ECU. It's actually a lot smaller than I expected, but we are at the tuning place now, so let's walk on in and get her flashed. Alright, so about an hour later, the newly flashed ECU is all set to go. Just plugging her back in, and then we're going to give her a good old rip and see how she pulls. Okay, coming into town on our way back from the tuning shop. ECU is all flashed, hooked back up, car's running good. And so first thing I noticed is that bottom end lack of torque is no longer there. It now feels like we've got the same amount of low end as we did before the flash, so that's good. Alright, we are back from the tuners. Car's running real good. Just doing one last check in the back here, making sure all of my hoses and everything are still tight, which they are. Nothing's coming loose or anything like that. And now I'm going to do a little more driving on it, and then we're going to go out back to the testing area. Then I'm going to do some acceleration tests. Of course, I'll show some before. We're going to do 35 to 70 second gear pull, and then a 50 to 100 third gear pull. And we're going to compare the times and see how much it's improved. Well, boys and girls, there you have it. Our second gear 35 to 70 test, about half a millisecond, and our third gear 50 to 100 test, about a full millisecond. I'm not going to lie, I did expect more of an improvement in acceleration. That does not seem like 25 horsepower to me. That seems like about 5, which, you know, if you take any gain as it is, then yeah, we did gain some power, but was it really worth it? I don't know. That's really up to you. What this really means is that these, 3.6 liter engines are pretty much well optimized from the factory. It seems like the engine can take just about all the air and fuel it can, with the stock throttle body. Now, a 3.8 liter, that might yield a bigger difference, or a 3.6 that's modified with, ported heads and bigger cams and that sort of thing. But for a stock block 3.6, it seems like this throttle body mod really does not make a whole lot of a difference, which kind of makes me wonder, the tune itself, who knows, it could have, this 5 horsepower could just be from the tune alone, and really the throttle body might have done nothing by itself. That's my observation. I mean, a gain is a gain, but for $700, my personal opinion, unless you are building your engine, unless you're doing compression and ported heads and bigger cams and all that sort of stuff where this engine will need more air and fuel, I would invest in probably something else like a X-Pipe, which is what I already have. But if you don't have it and you're debating between the two, I would go with the X-Pipe. I could definitely feel more of a seat of a pants difference from swapping over to that from the stock exhaust versus the bigger throttle body from the stock throttle body. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.